Hi everyone, Andrew's asked me to preach today, which is my pleasure. Also my pleasure to be speaking with the background noise of the children from St. Stephen's Preschool who are out in the playground at the moment. So if you hear a few bangs and taps, it's them, it's nothing else, and it's a great pleasure to hear their voices after all these weeks of restrictions. Now, a favourite conversation for many children and quite a few adults is, what superpower would you choose? You could pick between invisibility, super strength, flying, plenty more. And when we read through Proverbs, and even with all those verses in the Bible reading, there are plenty of other verses which are relevant to this topic. So have a flip through Proverbs and see if you can pick them out, or just Google them as well. When we do go to Proverbs to have a look at this, we can see that we do actually already have something that's very powerful. It's a power that can be used for good. And when it is used for good, the Bible says it's like some amazing things. I'll read them out. It's valuable like choice silver. It endures forever with an eternal legacy. It's honeycomb, it's sweet to the soul, it's a healing fountain of life, escape from harm, a rare jewel, rarer than even rubies or gold. When it's used for good, it's like a tree of life. But the same power can be used for evil too. And when it's used badly, the Bible says it's like these things: a trap, a snare, an ambush. It's valueless, destructive, and violent. It's like a heavy burden, or varnish on a cheap pot, complete waste of money, or an invitation to ruin. It can gulp evil, gush evil, and pierce like a sword. What's the power? Well, it's right here on my face. It's on your face as well. It's our mouth, our lips, our tongue, and it's basically the power of words and what we say. The Bible is very clear that words are important. In fact, God's words are so powerful that he created an entire universe just by speaking aloud. So our words are significant too. More than that, they have power. Our words create or break, build or destroy. Our words have consequences. Words also have ongoing effects, and Proverbs chapter 18 verses 20 to 21 talks about the fruit of our lips. I'll read it. From the fruit of his mouth a man's stomach is filled. With the harvest from his lips he's satisfied. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. If you like, another way to put it is that words are like seeds. They fall down around us, they fall into the ground, they take root, and then they grow up into plants which develop leaves and then develop fruit. And you can imagine what sort of fruit you're going to get if you've been planting seeds of gossip, whinging, lies, excuses, bitterness. It's certainly not the kind of fruit that you get if you planted seeds of generosity, genuine compliments, truth, encouragement, and empathy, for example. So what does this mean? Well, what we say comes back to us, good or bad. I'm not talking about the Hindu concept of karma, which is in your life you get good or bad actions based on what you did this life or previous lives, not at all. But it's a common sense approach. If you plant a lifetime of lies, half-truths and insults, you will reap all the kind of stuff that's really not very good. And it's not just us who eats the fruit of our lips, it's all the people around us as well. Every day we plant words into other people, and our words affect them. We can destroy the people closest to us so easily. We can put down the people at work or church. We can really give difficult situations to the people in our sports clubs and socially. Or, by the words we choose, we can build them up, help them to bloom. And it's all just by what we say. Proverbs has some very specific things to say about the words that we speak. First of all, it discusses speed and volume. Too much talking is not a good thing, says Proverbs. When we talk a lot, there's a greater potential for problems. Fools talk too much, it says. Wise people think before they speak, a very useful habit to get into. It's like if you've overfilled a jug with water and you're trying to take it to the table and then pour out the small glasses, you're likely to end up in trouble with water all over the table because it's hard to control that jug when it's overfilled. The same way, if we have words pouring out of our mouth constantly and we haven't even thought about them, what kind of damage are we going to do? We do need to be slow to speak. Proverbs also has a lot to say about gossip. When I was in boarding school in year 6, gossip was very exciting. You could sit in a group with a bunch of girls and be very judgmental, but feel absolutely awesome about doing it. It wasn't until I became the target of the gossip that I realised that gossip wasn't such a great thing. Didn't feel so good. When we plant seeds of gossip, what we reap is deceit, hurt feelings, broken relationships, and a lack of trust. So don't gossip, says Proverbs. Don't. If we need to talk to someone to express frustration, that's an entirely different thing. Choose one person, a very wise and reliable and closed-mouthed confidant if you need to, and see if you can approach the issue with a whole different attitude, one of love and one of problem solving, which is, how can I understand this difficult situation I've got with this person so that we can make it better? Gossip is basically destroying someone else's voice, and in contrast, Proverbs encourages people of God to speak up for people who have no voice. In chapter 31, verses 8 to 9, it says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all the destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy." Sadly, in every society, some voices are heard more than others. The people with privilege, money, education, the right name, the right coloured skin perhaps. And it tends to be that almost in every society again, it's the very young, the very old, the sick and disabled, the abandoned, the outsiders. They're the people who have much less voice. They're the people, the destitute, who Christians are called to speak up for. And there are so many voiceless in the world, aren't there? Sometimes it's overwhelming to think, well, who will I speak up for? I think we need to pray and ask God to direct us to the ones that He has for us to speak up for. What else from Proverbs are we instructed to do with our superpower? Well, we're told, speak truthfully. And in my last sermon, we discussed a whole lot about truth and love. Love definitely goes with truth. You don't just roll up to someone and say, very truthfully, that jacket is the worst thing I've ever seen. No. Truth must go with love and tact and wisdom. We're also told to speak gently. If we want to persuade someone, use gentle words, says Proverbs. It says that gentle lips can break a bone. They're so strong. And of course, we're also told to speak wisely. Proverbs says that a wise heart should guard our words. It also says place a guard by your mouth, which probably means do this. If you're in danger of speaking unwisely, or perhaps just stay away from situations where you know that you start to speak unwisely. But where does that wise heart, that guard for our mouth, comes from? Well, this is where the ears come in. Proverbs tells us over and over to listen, listen, listen. Listen to instruction, listen to wisdom, listen to the words of the teacher, listen to rebuke, listen to insight. Listen actively. Listening's not just some passive activity that we do when we have nothing else to do. Active listening involves remembering, using what we've learned, thinking about it, meditating on it, using the brain that God has given us. When we listen, we can find wisdom because it's there waiting for us to find it. Proverbs tells us very strongly, pursue wisdom, pay attention to wisdom. Let wisdom change our minds and our hearts, and then, necessarily, our words and our behaviours. Where do we find wisdom? Well, Proverbs says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And when we look at Jesus, we find the exact representation of God. He gives us wisdom. And God's words are in the Bible, ready for us to read and learn from. So let's remember that our words are indeed powerful. When we understand that what comes out of our mouth actually bears fruit as well. It's not just a one-off thing that we can say something and it has no consequences. No, our words have consequences. That is something that will enable us to use our words for good instead of for evil. And let's seek out Jesus and listen to him. That's the source of wisdom, which is the guard and the guide to our words.